Whitehall was the kind of town that seemed frozen in time, with its old cobblestone streets and creaking wooden houses that leaned together as if sharing secrets. At the edge of town, shrouded in a permanent fog, lay an old junkyard known as the Macabre Heap. This was no ordinary collection of broken machinery. It was an expanse of twisted metal and forgotten remnants from decades past. For 40 years, it stood untouched, watching over the town like a silent sentinel. The junkyard had once belonged to the McGray family, whose mansion loomed ominously atop a hill nearby, now abandoned and cloaked in ivy. The McGrays were once the heartbeat of Whitehall's affluence until tragedy struck. Their only son, Elias, disappeared one stormy night, and the family fell into ruin. Elias's absence haunted the townspeople, who whispered of mysterious lights that flickered from the old house on certain moonless nights, and ghostly laughter that drifted through the air when the wind was right. Jack was a 17-year-old with more curiosity than sense, and the stories of the McGray family had always fascinated him. But what set his resolve was a note he found crumpled in his locker, written in a hurried scrawl that sent chills down his spine. "Find me if you dare." The ink was smeared with something dark, something that looked suspiciously like old blood. As the sun slipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky in deep reds and purples, Jack made his way toward the junkyard. His flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the rusted skeletons of cars and appliances. The sharp, metallic scent of decay hung in the air, mingling with the damp, earthy aroma of moss and old oil. He shivered as a cold wind whispered through the broken glass and hollow metal, sending a wave of shudders down his spine. Glass cracked beneath his boots as he approached a rusted school bus, its once yellow paint flaked away to reveal deep gashes of red rust beneath. The seats inside were slashed open, their padding spilling out like intestines, and the windshield bore a jagged hole that resembled a gaping mouth frozen in a silent scream. "Who's there?" Jack called, his voice echoing off the hollow carcasses of machinery. Silence answered him, punctuated only by the distant metallic clink of shifting debris. He turned sharply, feeling the prickle of unseen eyes. In the darkness, his beam caught a glint, a porcelain face with hollow eyes staring from the shadows. A doll, its fabric dress worn, and its once rosy cheeks now a faded gray, sat motionless atop a pile of scrap. Then it spoke, its voice low and mechanical, like the grinding of ancient gears. "Find him, before he finds you." Jack stumbled backward, his flashlight slipping from his grasp and skittering across the ground. The beam swung wildly, illuminating twisted reflections of jagged metal and shattered glass. His heart pounded as he retrieved the flashlight, the beam shaped. Suddenly, from atop a heap of splintered wood and rusted metal, a figure shifted. Jack's breath caught in his throat. The silhouette was slender and impossibly tall, with limbs that moved with the jerky stiffness of a marionette. Its skin was a pallid gray, stretched tight over sharp bones, and its eyes, those eyes, were hollow black voids that seemed to pull in the light around them. "Elias," Jack whispered, recalling the stories of the lost McGray boy. But the thing that stood before him was not a boy. It moved forward with an unnatural grace, the clanking of metal underfoot mingling with the groan of the junkyard. Its jaw unhinged, releasing a sound somewhere between a growl and the creaking of an old door. Jack turned and ran, the sharp edges of scrap slicing at his jeans and drawing thin, stinging lines of blood on his calves. His breath came in ragged gasps, each step pounding in rhythm with the racing of his heart. Behind him, the figure followed, its strides long and relentless, gliding over the wreckage as if it were part of the very ground. The narrow path back to town was shrouded in shadows, the trees overhead forming a dark canopy that seemed to close in around him. Just as he thought he had put enough distance between them, he felt the cold touch of fingers graze the back of his neck. He spun around, expecting to see that hollow-eyed figure, but found only darkness and silence. The air crackled with a sudden unnatural energy. The whispering wind turned into a cacophony of voices, overlapping and dissonant. Find him. Find him. Find him. His flashlight flickered, the light dimming as if suffocated by the dark. Jack stumbled into the clearing, the familiar streetlights of Whitehall just visible through the trees. He felt the weight lift from his chest and slowed to catch his breath. But as he turned, he saw the edge of the junkyard, now eerily still, with one last haunting detail. The silhouette of Elias, or what was once Elias, standing motionless on top of a twisted pile of metal, eyes reflecting the light like the glossy surface of marbles. Then it raised one arm and pointed at Jack, a silent promise that this was not over. That night, Jack bolted the windows and locked the doors, but sleep was elusive. When he finally drifted off just before dawn, he awoke to a new note, this time slipped under his pillow. You will return soon. The ink was fresh, and beside it, a single delicate strand of porcelain, a remnant of the doll that had whispered to him in the dark. He knew then that the story of the McGray family and their lost son was far from finished, and he was now part of it.